welcome to another episode of Ladies Edition podcast with your hosts, Shelly, Cheyenne, and my lovely co-host,
the tired Shamika, because I'm perimenopause keeps me up all night.
We are so excited today. We have two lovely guests with us, share their background, their experience with menopause, all things health related, but we're zeroing in on the topic of menopause and all things that come with that. Good Lord, our beautiful guests, Andrea, and Jen, yeah. Andrea and Jen from Whiny GYNie. And they are can I say influencers?
Social media content. We say content creators, but you can call it whatever.
You're influencing me. You're helping me with this menopause journey, but they are content creators for TikTok, social media. You should check them out. I found them late one night at 2:30 a.m. Scrolling. Thanks, menopause. And I came across their content. It's so funny, but serious. And they're shining a light on their experience with this topic. So we want to thank you both for joining us today. I'm so excited.
Thank you for
having us.
So tell us and our listeners a little bit about yourselves, how you met, and how your content, your appearance on social media became. How did you guys come up with Whiny GYNie?
Yeah, I can take this one. So we started hearing that women presenting with gynecological symptoms that doctors didn't know how to address were being called whiny women. And I mentioned that to a surgeon friend of mine, and she said, "Oh yeah, Whiny GYNie." And I was like, okay, a company has been born. It's the Whiny GYNie, and we named ourselves that in order to remove that stigma and take back the name, right? Yeah. So, and not allow it to be being called whiny be weaponized against us. So we decided to take that power and use it to drive some information so people feel empowered and that so they can advocate for themselves.
Awesome. And how did you guys, now were you guys friends before? Did you just come together for this? How did you guys meet?
We met, I think, in 1999, 90.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was a sales rep. I sold advertising. Andrea was a media buyer. And we used to use my expense account and go out all the time. We became friends, like real friends. It wasn't a work relationship any longer. Like Andrea came to my wedding in France, and I think this summer? Was it May? Maybe we were texting. We had been checking in on each other all through COVID. We live in different cities. And I was texting with Andrea, and one day I was like, I am so miserable. And it was when I had just first started talking about menopause, because I didn't even realize what was going on because I had so many symptoms that were not talked about. Like the only thing that you really hear about is hot flashes, night sweats, maybe a couple other things. That's it. But I had some weird ones, and I'm like, I am so miserable. Andrea didn't even reply. She picked up the phone and we started talking. And it might have been that conversation when we decided that we needed to start making content. And then over the next couple of months, we were coming up with ideas like, what company can we build? But for now, we're like, you know what? We have so much knowledge because we have been nonstop reading, studying, just consuming anything that we possibly could to help people and getting the help that we needed ourselves. And that's where we got started. We started putting out content, I think, the very end of August. And now we have about 5,000 followers on social media combined, and we're looking to grow it.
Wow, that's amazing. I thought you guys had been doing this for years because the content is amazing.
Thank you. We actually formed our company on the 6th of September is when our company was actually officially recognized by the state. And and one of the other reasons we really started putting out content is because our trademark attorneys said you need to start using your name. So we had some trepidation, and we're a little bit like perfectionists. So we were trying to produce content that was like perfect. And we finally said, like, we just need to start putting it out there, right? Like it's not going to be perfect. And you can see our earlier videos are like
We already got better.
Yeah,
you can see, like our first videos, we learned to edit on the fly as we were doing it, and we were trying to hire somebody, and people were like, "You can figure this out," and we're not perfect, but it's
no.
enough to get the message out.
Yeah, and my background in advertising was as a media buyer, so I was around creatives always, and I always knew stay in your lane. You're not a creative, and so kind of shifting out of that and being more creative has been both very stressful and very freeing.
Yeah.
So I was always like the creative critiquer, like, oh, hey, this has to have a stronger call to action, and that you can't read that font and whatever. And now I am just being critical of myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you a Virgo?
I'm an Aries.
Okay.
Which is like everybody says that just makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm the child of an Aries and a Leo, and I guess that also makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfectionist. Yes.
So I wanted to touch on the fact that you were mentioning, Jen, you mentioned that you were having some weird symptoms. So let's talk about symptoms, because that's one thing. Just like you guys, Shelly and I did the same thing. It's like, well, have you had this? Or we're taking pictures of our scalp, like, what's this? Or, I think I saw a comedian that was like, once you get older, you're no longer exchanging like pictures of other things. It's now become medical selfies and things like that. So that's where we are. So I was just curious as to what kind of symptoms you were experiencing when you were kind of outside of just the hot flash, the night sweats, and those things.
Sure. So I would say the most prominent one was anxiety. I was born anxious, my mother tells me, but which is true, but the level of anxiety had gone through the roof. I was at a job where I had too much responsibility. I was working 14 plus hours a day on a regular basis, and I attributed everything to the job. But after I left, the anxiety didn't really quiet down. And sleeplessness, insomnia, and like you said, Shelley, the 3 a.m. wake ups are really a nightmare. That had been going on for a while, but again, COVID's so stressful. How do you determine what the cause is? And then things like nausea, dizziness, and people kept telling me, oh, you must be pregnant, which was unfortunate because I suffered from infertility. And I was like, I wish I was pregnant, but I know that's not what it is. And all these symptoms aren't really talked about that much. I think now the sleeplessness is because so many women suffer from it. But up until the last couple of years, I really had no idea that that was a thing.
Yeah. And my symptoms were different. So I don't suffer from anxiety. That's never been a thing, but sleeplessness became a big part of my life. Night sweats were horrific. I developed tinnitus. I developed new skin allergies to a bunch of terpenes and a bunch of different things that are in a lot of skincare and hair care products. I developed bilateral osteoarthritis. I had a knee injury that was seemingly associated to my bilateral osteoarthritis. It made me non-weight bearing for 6 weeks.
Wow.
And it was just like the sleeplessness was huge and the night sweats were big, but the lasting thing for me, oh, and my hair was thinning also. The big thing for me that persists sadly is the bilateral osteoarthritis. That's been kind of more lasting. Oh, I also produce extra earwax, which I mean, just like wacky stuff, like completely wacky, like just, so between the two of us, we had a lot of symptoms. A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for us, we had many of those. I think right now, and I'm experiencing the osteoarthritis. My joints, I feel like the Tin Man. I think I even said that on one of your posts. I feel like now I get what the Tin Man felt like. Like I literally wake up, I'm sore, I'm walking like this, until I get going, until the oil starts working, and and I'm like, oh my God. So what was, and I don't know if that's what I have. I haven't been diagnosed, but of course. So how were you diagnosed with that? Did you take those symptoms to your doctor or what?
So I was receiving, and I forgot to say, I also have genitourinary syndrome of menopause, which means I was wetting my pants. So that was the other thing that I'm
Oh
sorry I
my.
failed to mention. So for me, I was seeking care from each individual specialist. So for the arthritis, I was seeing an orthopedic surgeon. And I started complaining of knee pain to my PCP. He said, you need to go see this doctor. And that was simple. And you have skin reactions, you need to go see this allergist. And you need to go see this dermatologist. So it was like all these different specialists. And it was the day I woke up with a beard. And I had already, yes, overnight, I woke up with, they're vellus hairs, dark fine hair on my cheeks and on my neck. And it was overnight, and it scared the hell out of me. And I already knew I had the allergies. I just didn't attribute them to menopause. I went running to the threading salon because I knew I couldn't tolerate waxing anymore. And the woman looked at me and she said, "Oh, honey, it's the hormones."
Oh my
And
God.
it was the woman at the waxing salon that mentioned hormones to me. And then
Wow.
I went to my GYN's office, and they said, "Oh, you're probably a really good candidate for hormone, or you could really probably benefit from hormone therapy, but you're not a candidate." And that
Mm.
sent me down a horrific path of despair, and wondering if this was what my life was going to be like. And I started desperately asking people for help, even so far as reaching out to my women's networking group, which is a business networking group. And that's how I ended up getting care initially.
Wow. So you had to go through all these different channels.
I call it
And
death by a thousand copays. Yeah. Yeah. I'm self-employed, so my insurance is I mean, it covers things, but I have very high copays and things. It's like $55 a shot. Every place you went, 55, 55, 55, 55. And then we learned that a lot of women see as many as 9 doctors before getting the help they need for their hormone imbalance and their depleting estrogen.
wow.
Yeah. Well, that's actually my next question is how many doctors have you seen? Because we've talked about it before that, we've, my list has been cut down because I'm not doing all these copays and I prefer
Yeah.
holistic. So it's like, I've got my 2 main holistics and that's it.
Yeah.
But how many have you guys gone to?
I'm gonna have to
I'm
count on my
trying to
fingers.
calculate. I started off going to my regular gynecologist, and I live in New York City. I go to a very prestigious medical office that is often cited as an expert menopause care facility. I'm going to tell you a secret. There is one doctor in their menopause group. They just,
What?
it's PR. I'm not going to say the practice, but you could probably figure it out.
Yeah.
I love my gynecologist so much. She is so wonderful. Unlike most gynecologists, she's not living under the fog of, oh, the Women's Health Initiative. And she was completely willing to give me hormones, but she said, I've only got an hour or so of training, and I'm not really familiar with this. Since then, she told me this all happened this year, that they are giving them all training. And I think, it's people like Dr. Haver, Dr. Hirsch who are really affecting change here. But I
Yeah.
started off with her. If there is a side effect to a medication, I am the guinea pig who will always have that side effect. So if you ever want to take something, you should call me first and ask if I've taken it, because I'll tell you every possible thing that can go wrong. So the hormones that I was taking from her, I couldn't tolerate oral micronized progesterone, or bioidentical progesterone. It's also called, and some people get really depressive side effects, which I had from that. But because there's not a lot of training, nobody warned me. So then Andrea told me how check out MIDI Health. We don't have any association with them, no affiliation, but they do a good job. And for most women, that's sufficient because they are trained. They will prescribe you hormones. They don't give the runaround like a lot of other doctors do. And they allow you to obtain the hormones from your local pharmacy. So you're not getting, you're not paying too much. You're just
Yeah.
paying the insurance copay, or if you don't have insurance, you can use the GoodRx coupon. Then I went to mental health professionals because I thought I might have dementia or ADHD, and it turns out it's just brain fog. I think I'm still getting a brain scan just in case, but I'm pretty sure that the cause of it is menopause and depletion of estrogen. I've gone to another mental health professional that was supposed to be well-versed in menopause. She was not, so I stopped going to her. And now I'm finally going to my regular gynecologist and checking back in with her. But I found a functional medicine doctor who is starting from the ground up and just seeing what all my deficiencies are outside of hormones. So it's been a lot of doctors, and there's actually even been a few more sprinkled in there, but those are the main ones.
Oh my God. Let's see. We went to I started with my primary care, who then prescribed me antidepressants because she just figured, I had just lost my mom in 2020. So I started, and then I had a hysterectomy in 2021. So of course, your symptoms are grief. They're not really anything else. So for a while, I was thinking, yeah, it is grief. But she prescribed me antidepressants, didn't get on them. I knew not to. I just didn't feel comfortable with it. And then from there, I went to my gynecologist because of the weight gain. And she said, well, it's not me. You need to go to an endocrinologist. And then I went to him and he ran all these tests. And he says, well, you need to be on a statin because your cholesterol and your A1C is high. So let me put you on metformin too. I said no to both. And then I went to a holistic doctor who said, she was an MD as well, so my insurance did cover it, but she had me do all these different exams, the Dutch test. I had a hormone test. I had to pick in my stool for a couple of days out of the week. And she then said, well, you might need progesterone. That's what we need to put you on, bioidentical progesterone. I was on that for about a year until I started seeing, this weight wasn't coming off. I felt bloated all the time. My sleep did improve. And then I had acid reflux, which I thought was GERD. And then I thought I had a hiatus hernia. I mean, the list goes on.
So wild. It's so wild. Is there any one of the four of us who have not been told that you need to be on SSRIs?
Me.
Oh, really? Yeah, because that's the first line of defense for everybody. You definitely need, and some people do need SSRIs in addition. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but it's not a substitute for estrogen.
Right. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And for me, I was already at the orthopedic and the allergist. Then I was at the PCP, the dermatologist, now the endocrinologist. I mean, the list it just goes on and on and on and on. And my first, the woman from my women's networking group just messaged me on the side, same thing, didn't want to talk about it in the group, messaged me on the side and said, try MIDI Health. That's how I got care. Again, we don't have an affiliation with them, but I went to them first and they prescribed hormones for me. I have a gene mutation called factor V Leiden. I have heterozygous factor V Leiden, which I only know I have because my father had a DVT. And so he got tested. So he has protein S deficiency in factor V Leiden. So I have heterozygous factor V Leiden, which puts me at a slight increase for stroke. So I was asking for help. My PCP first said, you need to call this doctor local. I was so excited. I called the office and her receptionist said, did you go to our website? And I said, no, my PCP told me about you. I'm so excited. I'd like to make an appointment. And she said, do you know our cost structure? And I'd never been talked to that way when attempting to make an appointment before. And as I said, I have an extensive plastic surgery experience, all cash pay stuff. I just felt like this woman was dissuading me from coming in. And thank goodness I have a real problem with inequity. And she said, it's $3,000 for us to see you and to develop a plan. And then your health insurance will likely cover the tests we send you for, but then we only prescribe compounded medications. You'll have to pay for those with cash. And I don't know what it was, why she was such, I don't know, the B word to me, right? Because I'm keep it PC, even though I have the mouth of like terrible.
I'm anyway, like, say it.
That bitch. And so I called my PCP back. I'm like, that bitch wants $3,000 to see me and develop a plan. And I said, I have factor V Leiden. Do you treat people with factor V Leiden? They said, you'd have to make an appointment. I was like, so I'm going to come in and pay you $3,000 and you're going to say you won't treat me. And I was so angry. And anyway, that's how I found MIDI. And I did have to pay out of pocket, but $250 was like palatable, right? $3,000, not palatable with God knows how much a month in hormones, right? Without getting the education about why compounded, why not compounded. And I was I was pretty comfortable. The MIDI person emailed me to confirm my appointment, and I wrote back, yes, I will be there if you treat people with factor V Leiden. I will keep this appointment if. And she came back. She was the first person to ask me if I had heterozygous or homozygous factor V Leiden. Homozygous would be from both parents and would put me at a significant increase for stroke versus my slight increase. Meanwhile, I had been on oral birth control forever, pumping myself full of estrogen,
Oh my
right?
God.
That super high dosage when I was young. And I'd had massive amounts of plastic surgery because I have something called lipedema, which I had surgically corrected. So I had massive amounts of plastic surgery and I never had a clot. So she said, yes, we treat people. And she gave me the verbiage, factor V Leiden does not preclude you, blah, 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 transdermal is safe for you. And I made that appointment. I started the hormones same day and my life was immediately changed. Now, I also did put myself on the wait list for my local menopause and midlife clinic, which they told me it would be a year before I got a call. I got a call. I was very fortunate. And I don't know if it has anything to do with the work we're doing, but I got a call earlier and I was able to have that appointment. Sadly, I was sick. I had to convert it to a telemedicine appointment, which is like such a bummer. But I had a great appointment with that doctor and then a follow-up with her yesterday. So, and they concurred with everything that MIDI had prescribed. So it made me more comfortable in the telehealth, in talking about telehealth, but specifically telehealth that lets you get your prescription from your local pharmacy.
Yeah.
And so I feel pretty fortunate that I got care. It took too long. And I should say my GYN's office said I wasn't a candidate. That was not the gynecologist herself. That was someone else on her staff. And my gynecologist, I had my routine appointment today. She has now gone for advanced training at Johns Hopkins. And I thought that I was going to be looking for a new gynecologist today, because I thought it was going to be a push-pull about me being on hormones, and it wasn't. And now I was like, I really was, and Jen can attest, I was convinced I would be looking for a new gynecologist today.
But I think the tide is turning this year because every doctor that we've heard of is either educating themselves or their practices. And, forget about women's health. Like, this is their business. They need to stay alive because companies like MIDI or Alloy or Winona, there's so many telehealth companies. They're moving all their patients to telehealth, and like the ones that wouldn't prescribe hormones are, people like Andrea leave and then come back and say, hey, you know what, I got what I needed. So they're stepping up to the plate, and podcasts like you are helping the cause too, because you're bringing awareness so women are empowered. They're empowered and they can help themselves.
Yeah, I did want to add that I think my experience was a little different as far as after my hysterectomy, I knew I wasn't going back to that raggedy gynecologist that told me let's wait and see about my fibroids, because at that point, I already knew I have to advocate for myself. So I looked online and was like, oh, there's a sexual health clinic or office and they focus on women's health. So I made an appointment, went there, walked in, told her I cannot sleep, this, that, and the third. She said, I don't even have to test your hormones to know you need progesterone, you need this, you need this. And then she sent me across the hall to get my labs. And that was that. And I've been going to that doctor, gosh, for the last couple of years. But now I am just, because we've been trying the same testosterone gel that clearly does not work for me. And she acts like there's no other options. So now I'm on the hunt for someone else. But I just think that was the difference. I didn't go from doctor to doctor to doctor trying to get hormones. I just was like, I don't have a gynecologist at this point. So let me just try this doctor. Now I did have some foolishness with the dermatologist because I had a dark spot on my face and that was out of nowhere. And she said, oh, it's because when you're sitting in the car, the sun. And I was like,
I loved it.
Like it's gone now, but I'm like, I've been riding in the car in the sun all these years. It just decided to happen.
Yeah. I was told that I couldn't have grown the beard overnight. I must not have noticed. Before we started like filming, my brows are tattooed, my liner's tattooed, at my front 4 teeth are veneered, not just because of vanity, but because I had a bike accident and fell off my bike when I was 10. But like, I I've had massive amounts of plastic surgery. I didn't notice. I'm in the mirror. I didn't notice. One of my best friends was the medical assistant for my plastic surgeon. She is at my house all the time. She said it's the first thing we would have talked about. She would have been like, "What is happening with your face?"
Yeah.
And they literally told me that I must not have noticed it, as if I just didn't look in the mirror for days at a time and allowed this beard to come in. I mean,
You're crazy.
no, that didn't. I must not have noticed. No, I noticed. I noticed it so much so that I canceled all my meetings and I went running I was like, what time does the threading salon open? And I was there like when their doors opened.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't notice. And just like you, that dark spot had to be just the sun.
It was, yeah. Like I have not gone back to her since then because every time I
Really?
get in the car and then I think about it, it makes me angry.
Did you end up was that addressed? Was the spot addressed? And
You know what
okay?
has changed it? Lowering my stress level actually helped change it because when I started watching videos on YouTube, it seemed to be coming from high cortisol. And so as I've changed my diet over the past 2 months, it's almost non-existent.
Wow.
Because it was covering my whole cheek.
Talk to us about lowering stress. I want to understand this.
Yoga. I got a yoga and meditation.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that, and then it's just, I had to pull some stuff off my plate because I got 50 side hustles. So it was kind of like, okay, what can I remove? What people can I try to back away from, and setting boundaries with family because it was stressful. So that was, I mean, I'm still stressed, but not as bad as I was earlier this year.
I think we both released some people from our worlds too. You know, I guess about 50-ish, you start doing a purge. And I don't just mean the closet. I mean, like, you get rid of, as Jen coined a term, and I hope it's okay, a candle snuffer. Anyone who is just dulling and like trying to put out your light, you just like out.
Yeah,
out.
I like that.
Yeah.
I actually did not make that up. My friend who's a therapist did, but I use it all the time. It's a good, you don't want the candle snuffer.
No.
The candle.
No.
What do you guys think? What do you ladies think about the talk of the town, which is menopause? Now it's out in social media. Now celebrities are talking about it. They're using their voices. We were talking about this before we started the podcast. What do you think about them now in 2024? Let's just say 2023, lending their voices to this topic, to this cause. What do you think about that?
I think we're thankful.
We're so grateful that this has become a thing. And just like, I think Halle Berry was the first person that I recognized was talking about it. And then Drew Barrymore, Kelly Ripa, who else?
Oprah, Maria Shriver.
Yeah.
Naomi Watts. Yeah.
There's at least 15 female celebrities talking about it. And I think that's a perfect starting point, because if it's okay for them to talk about it, hopefully it'll have the effect that everybody can talk about it. But we're finding there's still a very big barrier of resistance because, again, we were talking earlier, when Andrea and I post videos, what would be the most helpful thing for us is if people will comment and engage with it so it gets pushed out more. But I still get a lot of text messages or private messages. Thank you so much for saying that. I actually learned something from you that I didn't learn from my doctor. And we're like, that's amazing, but can you comment on our, and I get why they don't want to, because there's still stigma and there's shame. It's for the same reason you used to have to hide your tampon in your pocket when you were in high school. Oh no, she has a period. That's, girls are gross, it's embarrassing. And we need to get over that. And I don't know how else to get over it, but for Andrea and I on a personal level, to just keep talking about it, because the more that women like you and like us continue to talk about it, more regular girls will just feel cool with, it's perfectly natural and there's no shame.
It's the only experience that 100% of women will have.
Mhm.
It's our shared experience as women. We should all be talking about it. We should all be talking about what is happening with us, because we feel compelled to share the information. And we will do a video if somebody messages us privately. We'll research and talk about that topic. But God, we'd much rather they publicly say what's going on with them to further the conversation. And I think Halle Berry was so brave when she talked about being misdiagnosed with herpes, because that's such an extreme, right?
Wow.
It's such and if Halle Berry's getting shitty care, what does it mean for the rest of us?
Yeah.
And I think when we all come together and we talk about how we received care as like regular people, then it shows that care is accessible as long as you know how to find it and demand it.
Mhm.
And I think that like Jen's practice and the practice that I go to for my GYN, just knowing that they're getting the demand and so they're having to address it is going to help all of us.
Mhm.
All of us will be helped by that. So that's, and aside, like I wish some of the stars had spoken out 20 years ago when they started to have symptoms, and maybe it would have helped us. We wouldn't have had such a struggle, but they're talking now. So we have to be helpful, and we have to.
It wasn't okay back then. And
Yeah.
hindsight's always 2020, but I don't think people got canceled 20 years ago, but it would have been like, oh, this person is talking about that. Can you believe this? Just deal with it. And it would have been overridden. They would have been shut down.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I wish that the tide had started 20 years ago, and the heavy lift is on all of us now, but we're up to it apparently, right? We're all talking to each other today.
Yeah.
We're up to the heavy lift. So bring it. And I will say the majority of my practitioners and clinicians have been super excited about our channels. I had two that were a little skeptical, and they're like, and I'm like, we don't offer medical advice. We talk about our personal experience, and we reiterate the research that we're seeing. We're not producing a study or managing a study, and we don't have prescription pads, so we can't do
we're
it.
not telling you what to do, except the only thing that we do tell people what to do is how to navigate the medical system and how to get themselves care. And most importantly, we recognize when to tell people to walk away when they're getting inappropriate care. But we don't ever give people medical advice.
No, we can't. Only the U.S. Congress can practice medicine without a license.
Well, I was just curious because, like you're saying, a lot of people they're not comfortable talking about it. And even that whole stigma of, you just throw back to having to put your tampon or pad and like hide it from the class or whatever. But actually, this is funny. I was leaving yoga the other day, thought I had gotten rid of all the pads that I have after a hysterectomy. And I pulled my umbrella out of the bag. And of course, there's a guy standing there. And I looked down, a pad had fallen out of my bag. And I was so mortified, like, do I leave it? Do I pick it up? And so I tried to slide it under my shoe. And then I was like, you know what? Like, it's raining. I'm not doing all this.
Yeah.
Harry Bradshaw dropping a condom next to Mr.
Yes. Right. Or I one time like opened my bag and gas X went flying out, right? Like, I mean, these things happen, right? Like my friends, we were in Sedona. I was with my high school girl, and I have five of us were friends since kindergarten. I'm very fortunate. They're like, remember that time gas X went flying out of your bag in front of the waiter, right? And I was like, oh yeah, that happened. And it is what it is, right? And the conversation about the tampon happened again. I was at the hair salon on Saturday, and I was reading Dr. Haber's book. Lots of conversation ensued, but one woman said to me, "Thank you for what you're doing. This is so important." And her teenage daughter, said to her, "Mom, why do I have to hide my tampon?" And she was like, "You don't have to hide it." And that I wouldn't have even thought to ask my mother if I had to hide my tampon or not. I just did. You put it in your pocket.
Yeah.
And I was relaying the story to my mother, who has had GSM for decades and didn't even know what it was. She just thought that women have to wear pads because they pee themselves now. That's just what she thought. And she said, "I still hide my pads when I'm running to the bathroom. I still hide my poise pad. And we made a video, and hopefully Taraji Hanson isn't offended, but we're like, poise pads aren't sexy. And Lisa Rinna, you and your Depends, not sexy. Like, let's get to the bottom of these issues. There are likely things we can do so we don't have to support these CPG companies with, their pink tax, right? Like, so we don't have to do that. Let's get to the bottom of these things, because for me, I was able to solve my GSM with pelvic floor physical therapy and estradiol vaginal cream. And my mom, I mean, my friend's grandma's 87 and she has a pessary, which helps with the GSM and uses estradiol vaginal cream. My mom had a bladder sling surgery because I talked to her. I'm like, you don't have to live like this. It's questionable how successful it is for her, but they told her, you don't need estradiol cream. I mean, like, this dumbass urogynecologist like gives my mother terrible advice. Like, and I'm like, why do I feel like I know what? Well, because I spent more time researching menopause than he did. But, she's now seeking out a different urogynecologist, and she's hoping that her bladder sling surgery helps her from getting frequent and chronic UTIs that are oftentimes asymptomatic, which can then cause you to appear to have, dementia. And if anybody knows somebody who's had a UTI and what happens to them cognitively, sometimes when that happens, it can be really scary. So, we're trying to push awareness, not just for us Gen X and millennials who are going through this, but even our boomer parents who might have been living with symptoms that are an irritant and a nuisance, but can really be detrimental to their long-term health. So we're trying to help everybody.
Right. Oh, I forgot what my question was a minute ago because I never got to it because I started talking about
Sorry, did I interrupt?
No. It was me and my brain fog because I went over here with the that and I thought of something else. But for women that are afraid to talk about it, because it just made me think of last week. I was at a work event and was outside. It had been raining or something, and I sat on a chair. My pants got wet, and we had 300 students. And so I'm waiting in line. I'm not thinking anything about it. I sat in a wet chair, had on jeans, whatever. She follows me outside and she says, I don't know if you're on your period. And I started hee-hawing like, girl, I don't have the parts for a period. And then she was like, there's something on your pants. And I think if you need a pad, I'll give it to you. And I was like, why are we whispering?
but still so kind, right?
It was very kind of her
because tell you if you had spinach in your teeth.
Yeah,
like that's a good person to have in your world.
Yeah, so I said, well, show me, because I couldn't see. I was like, show me where it is. And she's like, give me your hand. So she puts my hand on where it is, and I'm cracking up because I'm like, why am I doing all this with this child? Yeah. So I was like, thank you, because most of these other 299 students aren't going to tell me that there's something on my pants. So I was appreciative, but I thought it was interesting that she was trying to be, polite, but she may have also been a little uncomfortable. But then it reminds me how we were just talking about having to, people are texting or DMing or whatever to say, hey, thank you for talking about this, or I have a question about this. Could you maybe do this, or or have you had this symptom? Yeah. So how do you make people feel more comfortable being more vocal about it? And what advice could you give them?
So all four of us are fairly extroverted. Not everybody has that personality, and that's completely understandable. You don't have to go and make TikToks about menopause. But if I would say, if you're more of a shy person, more introverted, or very private person, I would say just start with grabbing one friend and confiding in them and saying, hey, this is what I'm going through. I have brain fog or night sweats or whatever it is that you have, and ask your friend, what has your experience been? Because Andrea and I hosted a screening of the M Factor, the menopause documentary that aired on PBS last month, and we had a panel discussion afterwards of 4 doctors, and we had about 70 guests in the audience, and we had to be out of there by 9 o'clock. We had to physically be like, okay, because
take it to the sidewalk. Yeah.
Nobody could stop talking about it. And that's what I found, because once Andrea and I started talking, I had confided in a couple of my friends that are a few years older than me and been like, what's going on? I asked my mom what's happening. But once you start going, you can't stop talking about it and it becomes so normal. It's the same thing as us making the videos. I was very apprehensive at first. I would say I'm more private than you are, Andrea. Yeah, and I don't air a lot of my stuff on social media, but now it's like we're just compelled and we can't stop talking about it. And it's actually been a great self-confidence builder. Like I don't care what anybody
Yeah.
thinks. If
Yeah.
people want to slam us or tell us, you are terrible, we can't stand you, I don't care. I know I'm helping people. We all know we're helping people, and you just stop caring about it. So if somebody's shy and is like apprehensive about talking about it, I would say not only will you help yourself, you might help somebody else, and you might actually save somebody from severe depression. There's so many things that are really serious that can go on with menopause. Like Andrea, and you know the stats, I'll let you.
Yeah. Since the WHI study, the suicide rates in women have increased 6%. And so that correlation cannot, people can't say that it doesn't exist. There's a correlation there. So women need care because people are killing themselves. And we see when women are beyond, you're never beyond menopause, but when you're later in that menopause journey and your hormones have kind of balanced out or leveled out or bottomed out, is probably the more, that suicide rate decreases by 58%.
Yeah.
So what we know is that, and I'm a marketer, I am not a doctor or a statistician. I took statistics twice in college. So, and not because there was one and two. I think I had to like 4 times, right? Took one twice, took 2 twice. But there's a correlation between those increases, and those are bad increases.
Yeah.
So at a minimum, I think sadly, everyone's family has been touched by suicide. And we're used to thinking about it with younger people. But if you could think somebody in your peer group could not be here tomorrow because they don't get the care they need today. And for that reason and that reason alone, we have to talk. And if you're not comfortable getting online, like Jen said, just pull aside a friend. Call the suicide hotline if you're in a desperate situation. Get the care you need. And when we did the post in support of Dr. Mary Claire Haber after the New York Times interview and article, there were countless comments about how her content and content from other people like her saved their lives.
Yeah,
and I don't think that they all caps, and I don't think they mean it in like a frivolous way. They mean it literally. They mean
some of them were literal.
My life. Yeah. And so for that reason, I know suicide has touched my family. It is devastating. People do not ever recover from that. And we want everyone to know that the world is better with you here than it would be without you. And please, please, please talk about it. And if your clinician is not supportive of hormone therapy for you or providing you some sort of care that is appropriate, if maybe you're not a candidate for hormones, find someone else. Find somebody who will listen to you, who will talk to you, confide in a friend so they can help you navigate if you're in a state where you can't do that for yourself. And so I think, that's really where that's the position we come from.
And if it isn't that serious, if it's not a serious mental health, just quality of life.
Yes.
Just, it's not worth being miserable or not sleeping or whatever it is. Not sleeping will ruin your day. And then it'll ruin years of your life if you're not sleeping. So you might be helping somebody just have great quality of life by having one conversation with them. You may set them off on a different trajectory.
Yeah. And funny, my college roommate, I went to the movies with her, and she was telling me about her experience and how she went and got hormone therapy. And I was like, nothing. I've had nothing. It was 3 days later that I woke up with that full beard. And it really was. I was like, oh, I haven't had anything yet. And I was a little dismissive, right? And I think she was trying to share.
Andrea, didn't you already have the beard?
I obviously, it had already started and I just hadn't noticed. But yeah, it was just a few days later that I was in desperate need of care. And had I listened to her and made the appointment with the local menopause and midlife clinic and kind of gotten ahead of things, I might have avoided the severity of my osteoarthritis. Maybe I would have gotten ahead of the development of these horrific allergies that I have. Like my dog went to the groomer Saturday. They sprayed her with something and I broke out in hives, and then I got a rosacea flare, and now I'm on another round of doxycycline antibiotic.
Oh my
Right. So like,
God.
had I been able to get ahead of that, maybe I wouldn't be having like frequent reactions. And I was the person with the good skin. Okay. And so like skin problems are like, that's where that's anxiety producing for me. Right. Oh, Shamika, you too? You were the girl with the good skin? Yeah.
It's been literally everything. Even, I think food is my enemy now. And anything.
And you just had like an antihistamine or histamine.
Oh yeah. It was a histamine reaction to tuna, the lemon pepper tuna. My whole body felt like it caught on fire. I mean, even with, Trader Joe's gluten-free waffles, my throat closed up and I was like, oh God, like I gotta go somewhere and I need to, but then I was also trying to finish eating the waffles because those are expensive.
Yeah,
But,
I get it.
but yeah, every little thing, I was getting hives on my neck. There's this rash that just keeps happening on my back, my lower back. And I've been told I mean, the amount, I have a whole box of creams. None of them work. None of them work.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to.
Hydrocortisone worked for me. Hydrocortisone 2.5,
Well,
followed by Aquaphor.
Okay, I'll try that because the under the breast, the intertrigo, that because they kept giving me wrong things that blistered up. I couldn't even wear a bra all last summer.
I mean, partially freeing, but partially horrible.
Yeah, well, yeah, but yeah,
no, I know.
But yeah, I can relate to the skin thing totally.
It's really the skin thing is crazy.
Yeah.
And what people don't realize is just how many estrogen receptors we have in our body.
Yeah.
Estrogen affects almost every one of our systems. It's not just the hot flashes, and it's not just the night sweats, and it's not just low libido. It is everywhere. It's in our brains, it's in our joints, it's in our muscle, it's everywhere. And people don't realize that part. Yeah, itchy ears.
Itchy ears is estrogen too.
Yeah, I think when I first started noticing symptoms, because I didn't know anything about menopause. My mom was in her 50s. I say about 54 when she finally entered menopause, totally stopped her period, everything.
Yeah.
And so I was expecting, okay, that'll be my path. I'm jazzy until my 50 at least, And I had a myomectomy in 2016 for fibroids. And then a few weeks after the surgery, I woke up out of my sleep with vertigo. Bad vertigo, to the point where I thought someone had pushed me out, like the old Twilight Zone, you had that spinning thing. That's how I felt. And I started throwing up everywhere like the Exorcist. And so I finally went to an ENT, and he said, I thought I was dying. I thought, the surgery went bad. I thought I probably had something still up in me. I didn't know what was going on. And he said, well, I'm going to do a test on you, and I'm going to show you what it probably is. And he labeled it BPPV, or benign positional vertigo, proximal vertigo.
Oh, so it's like we did the whole. I've been through that many times.
He threw back his chair, and I was clutching and digging in his skin. And so after the horror stopped, I said, how did I get this? At the time I was 42. And he said, well, unfortunately, it just comes, especially with women, it just comes. And I said, so what is this just coming? And he said, age. He said, it might be due to your age. And I said, oh my God, I've always been healthy. Thank God, I've never had any major issues. So that was kind of the first sign. And from that, I started just watching little things. And I would have conversations with my mom and say, Mommy, when did you go in menopause? I think I might be in this peri. What is peri? And she was like, listen, we didn't call it none of that. What y'all are talking about, we didn't have all of that. It's menopause. You're in menopause. She's a New Yorker. You're in menopause, And so, but she didn't take it seriously at the time. And I didn't have the hot flashes. I didn't have any of that. I still really don't. But I have all these other things that people are just passing off as grief, or it's in your head. The acid reflux. I mean, if you looked at my bathroom sink, I have all of these prescriptions on my counter. And I'm like, oh my God, I went from an Advil bottle to now 7 or 8 different things. For what? And I just started feeling like if I had known, just like Andrea said, if I would have, maybe started sooner or known something sooner, I'm wondering, hopefully what we're doing collectively is helping those younger women to not pass it off, even in your 20s, to not pass it off. In my opinion, I think menopause should be talked about early in your 20s, not just wait till
Absolutely.
your 30s. When do you think women should start that conversation?
When they have babies, they should start talking to their children and talking to their kids about what's going on with them. You prepare people for puberty, you prepare people for pregnancy and childbirth, and nobody prepares anybody for menopause. I think the conversation needs to be normalized, and it needs to just always be happening. It just needs to be part of the world and the conversation. I don't think that like you don't start talking about it like, okay, we're going to talk about kids about sex when they're about 9. And then like, no, I think just like I grew up in a house where my mother talked about a lot. Like I knew her positions on a lot of different topics from the time I was very young.
Mm-hmm.
I knew her positions on unplanned pregnancy. I knew her positions on, on all the different things. And I think that had she had the knowledge then, she would have been talking about menopause also. And I think we need to talk about not just menopause, but the other things that happen to women gynecologically, endometriosis, PCOS, PMDD, like all of those things need to be part of the vernacular. When you see a woman with a beard out, right? She's not in the circus. She likely has PCOS. We should have some empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's, not to be viewed like a person at the zoo. Let's have some empathy. And I think that carries over to everything. When you see somebody with disabilities out in the world, when you see anything that is not typical, you should be having conversations about it. And I say that as a person, a sibling of a neurodivergent person who operates at a very low level, right? I say you have these conversations about all the difficult topics and you normalize them.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't hide what's happening to you. You need to break out the fan, you break out the fan.
Oh, I have a collection. I have a cute collection of fans. And I travel with them, and I have 2 nieces, 18 and 21 now. So I'm like preparing them. Their mother is preparing them. Their mother is in menopause with me. She's 52. I'm 50 now. And she's going through the exact same conversations that Shamika and I have, and we're comparing notes. And I'll show you, I'm making a whole notebook.
Oh God.
With the binder.
I have and it's actually, I started it when I turned 50 this June. And I said, I'm going to put things in here about life for my nieces. I don't have children. So I want to put some stuff in here. And I'm having stuff about menopause, your health, start now in your 20s, watch different signs and changes with your body. If your cycle looks a little off, go and get that checked so that way we can find out if you got fibroids, PCOS, all of the things. Don't wait for a doctor to tell you. Be more aggressive about your health care, because you'll be passed off, especially a minority woman, a woman of color. You're going to be overlooked. You're going to be told, oh, there's nothing, or the good old fashioned wait and see. And meanwhile, you have all kind of things growing on your uterus. You have possibly cancer. And then you're out of here when something could have been cured. So I really feel that what we're doing, we need to educate the younger generation, the younger women, whether they like it or not. I'm in education, and my students, when they hear me get up and my bones are cracking, they're like, Miss Shelley, are you okay? You'll see one day.
You'll see.
That was worried about me. She heard I got up and it was like crack, 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 and I'm just ignoring it. She's like, "Oh my God, is that you?" I said, "Yes, it is, and it'll be you too. If you don't do this, start with your vitamins. Start vitamin D, D3, K2. I'm like a medicine woman. Just call me Dr. Quinn, although I don't give medical advice. So let's just keep that there. But
none of us do. None of us do.
But Shamika and I have developed this ability to just start talking about this, and I don't care anymore. I'm tired of suffering and feeling like I'm the only one that is suffering. And when you were talking about the suicide rates, I'm just like, I literally woke up one day. I'm a pretty strong mentally and emotionally person. Like I can handle a lot of stuff, but I felt myself literally collapse and not know what was happening with my body because I couldn't control. I didn't have an answer for it. And I was so scared and I was so frustrated of being passed off and told, oh, well, you are getting older. Well, give me something. Tell me what to do, you know? And so
that's not an answer.
That's not an answer. And that's constant. So, you know, I'm so happy for you both that you are sharing your experiences with your viewers and listeners, and we're sharing ours because yes, I'm kind of like Jen. I'm a little private, and Shamika had to tell me, you know, we will be helping others, you know, if we do this. And I'm like, okay, but I don't want to talk about my vagina. Oh, you know, and
I'll talk about mine. When you're not ready to talk about yours, I'll talk about mine.
Right. I'm usually screaming vaginal dryness.
All of our episodes
urinary
we're talking about a vagina.
Watch me jump 20 times without wetting my pants. Like I literally did that
love
video.
that. I was crying, laughing. I said, if she doesn't stop this is hilarious.
I did like 4 takes. So I actually jumped it like 80 times because I'm never satisfied with my first video, right? So I've got to do it like a bunch more times because I have to watch it to see if like you could get me jumping. And then I'm like, is it too loud? And then I'm like, no, you're supposed to jump hard. I mean, like, because when I first saw Dr. Vonda Wright's video about like you should be jumping, I was like, I'm gonna pee my pants. My plan was to do this video and be like, okay, my advice is to do this before you get in the shower because you're gonna wet yourself. And then I was so excited that I didn't pee my pants, and like I did, like the whole time I was like, all right, I think I can do. Well, I peed, and then I did one more video, but like I like it. Like intentionally in the bathroom, but I still was like, I need to do this because I want to see if I can. And then somebody asked if jumping on the I want to just put this out there. Somebody said, can I jump on the trampoline? Mm-hmm. So I said that to my GYN today because Dr. Wright said, yeah, you could, rebounding is fine. And Jen, you'll appreciate this. My GYN said, do not do rebounding on the trampoline. And I was like, why? She's like, Achilles injuries, off the charts, Achilles injuries for women jumping on the trampoline. So I was advised not to jump on the trampoline. I do have a Pilates reformer and I might try that. What, Jen?
You do not want Achilles injuries. I used to do triathlons and both my Achilles have permanent micro tears. It's not an injury you can fix. And at this age, it definitely comes back to you.
So I probably will go back and be like, hey, they said rebounding is fine, but I've heard not to. So maybe no. Yeah. So yeah, the jumping was because I was going to do the jumping. Jen's like, my Achilles are messed up. I can't do the jumping. I was like, all right, I'll do the jumping.
I'll do it.
Yeah. But of course I did it in relation to did I or did I not wet my pants, because that was my whole thing was, you know, hey, urinary. I thought I was safe, by the way, from urinary incontinence, urgency and frequency because I didn't have children. I thought I thought that happened to my friends who had babies.
Yeah. That's what
specifically like, you know, difficult deliveries. Not the case. The doctor told me, and I quote, oh, it's age and gravity. That's what they told me. I was like, that's estrogen depletion, because that's age equals estrogen depletion in this little equation here. And let's do a little estradiol cream. Again, this is what was right for me. I'm not giving medical advice, but talk to any doctor and they're going to tell you to do it. Estradiol cream and pelvic floor physical therapy was a game changer. Yeah. And if you can't do in-person pelvic floor physical therapy, if your symptoms are not super severe, you can do virtual pelvic floor physical therapy. Mm-hmm. There's also gamified pelvic floor physical therapy, where you use your vagina as the controller, which is really interesting. It's the only, because when I was talking
know us.
Well, I know Jen was like, you're going to video it. I was like, no, I can't, but I can tell you what it is. So there's a device called the PeriFit. They have 2 different models. And I cleared this one with my pelvic floor physical therapist. A lot of the other stuff, because all of a sudden I was doing a lot of research, so stuff's coming in my feeds and, you know, banners and whatever. And I was showing her different things. She's like, no, not that, not that, not that. And I showed her the PeriFit. It's a device you insert it in your vagina, and then you hook it to your telephone. And and then you use your Kegel muscles, which is a very slight. I'm doing Kegel right now, and I am too.
Oh my God, me too. That's been the whole time. I've been like off and on.
Right. So you put the device in your vagina, whichever model you choose. You link it to your phone, and then you actually play games. You're playing games with your vagina as the controller. So it causes you to contract, and say you're flying a plane or you're a bird, and you contract and the bird goes up in the sky. And then there are like different hoops and stuff you go through. And sometimes you have to do a significant drop. So you have to release your vagina really fast, right? And then bring it up again. And it's gamified. And hey, listen, a lot of us like games on our phones, right? Nobody knows what game you're playing.
Vagina. I mean, you know what I'm picturing? I'm picturing the old Atari joystick.
Yeah.
And you're sitting on that sucker and you're gripping.
Yes,
and
you are.
Releasing it.
Yeah, we actually,
Okay.
the PeriFit people actually donated one of their devices for us to use as a door prize at our event. And so like the vagina is the controller it's not the first time Jen's heard me say it, because I extemporaneously came out with it at our event. But yeah, you use your pelvic floor to control the game. And
oh my God.
and again, my pelvic floor physical therapist thought it was cool. Yeah, reach out to them. Reach out to them and tell them you'll review it. Maybe they'll give you one for free or something.
Shamika, you did that. Shamika's
Shamika's
the one who goes
like
and does stuff, and then she brings it back and we talk about it. So yeah, look into that. You do. She does pelvic floor therapy too. So
yeah, I was using my pelvic wand one day because my pelvic floor tends to get tight, and my sister's like on the phone, "You better not be." And I was like, "What? My pelvic floor is tight." And so she hung up on me, then called back with my mom on the phone and was like, "Guess what she's been doing?" And I was like, "You'll act like I ain't been using this pelvic wand for the past year."
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So pelvic floor physical therapy for me was manual. It was manual physical therapy with a physical therapist. I have another friend who she went to pelvic floor PT after some particularly difficult births, and they did the wand stuff that pelvic floor physical therapists now, I guess, really do the manual, but the wand stuff you can do at home.
Yeah. I
have a friend who owns an adult store, and for years, a million years ago, Jen, I don't know if you remember this. This is like probably a 23-year-old story, but we used to joke there was an adult store here called Grand Opening, but Jen would confuse it and call it the Gap. Whenever should we go to the Gap? Let's go to the Gap. But it was hysterical. But
my God.
Since then, right? We never went, but it was like always. I don't know where it came from. It was like a joke we had, like we're doing these media plans and we're working on these boring clients or whatever. Let's go to this adult store and laugh our butts off. Like that was really, I think, what we wanted to do. But my friend owns an adult store, and she has OBGYNs that send their patients to her for vaginal dilators and all different things because of vaginal atrophy, which is the old name for genitourinary syndrome of menopause, GSM.
Good job pronouncing that, Andrea.
What is it, Jen?
Good job pronouncing it.
I practiced saying genitourinary syndrome of menopause for like 2 weeks before I could do it in a video. As if that sounds better than vaginal atrophy. And by the way, if you Google it, it's some technology something. It isn't And so I don't know who needs to do the search engine marketing campaign. Maybe it's me for genitourinary syndrome of menopause. I should totally just buy like the terms and stuff, but and then try to outbid whatever the technology is. But yeah, women, they're now calling it genitourinary syndrome of menopause. You search it and it doesn't come up. So if you're going to search, just say search vaginal atrophy.
Atrophy is what people know.
Yeah.
This conversation has been so fun.
I'm having a blast. Can we do this next week too? I mean,
whatever you say, you guys have to come back because this was fun. We didn't even, when I tell you, Shelly and I had all these prepared questions, we didn't even get to them.
No. I mean, you can ask us and then edit whatever you want to do.
No. I love that the conversation just went where it went. Like, I think where it went will help a lot of people. So can you tell us where everybody can find you on the social media and and what's next for you guys?
Our next thing is that we've been invited to do a session at a menopause summit, which we were pretty excited about that. Yeah.
Awesome.
So there'll be about a 1-hour interview with us. And we'll share with you the details on the summit. We know it's free of charge. There is like an upcharge option where then you'll get some materials and things. And there are a lot of different professionals. I think we're the lay people in the summit.
Patient perspective. Everybody else is a medical provider or some kind of specialist, like a physical therapist, but we're coming to have a similar conversation like we just had with you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So we've got that. We've got our social channels. So we're on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. We also have a website, www.thewhinygynie.com. And our links to all of our socials are in there. So you can find us. Like, we have way more traction on TikTok than elsewhere, but we don't know what'll happen with TikTok. So please follow us on all the channels. And we strive to post at least a video a day. And we're committed to sharing whatever information we come across without giving medical advice. Yeah.
If anybody does have a topic that they'd like to discuss, we're open to suggestions too.
Yeah.
Well, we so appreciate this. I have just waited. I didn't think it was going to happen this fast. So I was just like, oh, they're probably just going to say, no, get out of here. Or think we're a bunch of freaks or something. You just never know.
That's what we thought you'd think of us.
Yeah, I told Shelly, I was like, because I do a bajillion interviews for other stuff. And I'm like, just ask, just throw it out there. Just see what they say.
Like, oh, I don't know. I mean, they seem like they may not want to do something like this, but okay.
We were excited. We were excited to be asked. And we also just want to make it clear that menopause and perimenopause hits everyone, regardless of color, regardless of socioeconomics, regardless of all of those things. And so we all need to be producing information together. And I mean, we would love to be able to reach out to you. We plan to do some interviews with people and then compile that information possibly. And we'd love to have the two of you participate in that, along with, the probably 100 other people or 98 other people we're going to talk to. But we are thankful and grateful for the opportunity. And I think this, Jen, I mean, would you agree? This has just been super fun. I mean, yeah.
This was a great time. It was a genuinely great time. You never know how anything's gonna go, but it was so fun. I wish we lived in the same city so we could hang out. Where do you live?
I'm in Arkansas.
I'm in North Carolina.
And I'm outside of Boston.
And I'm in Manhattan.
Well, you know what? We have to do a meetup somewhere in the middle.
Yes. Chicago? Is Chicago a good spot?
That's my hometown. Listen.
I used to spend half the week there for work, and
awesome!
I enjoyed it so much.
So much good food. I'm sorry, New York. I know I love New York. My mom's from there, but I mean Chicago's pizza.
Well, okay, agree to disagree, but
I'm off of gluten.
Right, I'm off of gluten and dairy, so I
it's a nightmare.
Jelly, we're gonna enjoy some pizza. I'll bring that. Neapolitan, you bring the deep dish and we'll go from there. But
I sure will. Well, ladies, we just so appreciate you joining us today. We're going to list all of your information in our show description, so our listeners will reach out to you. We wish you the best of luck on your adventure in menopause and your personal health and wellness. And we do just thank you so much for sharing your content, because someone like me, who, even though I talk about it, but it was so amazing to hear it from a different perspective, fun with it. You made it fun, serious as well. And I fell in love with y'all the first time I saw your TikTok, and I said, okay, I need more of this in my life. So we just thank you for coming on. Ladies Edition podcast. You can find us on all the social media channels, the social media networks, YouTube, TikTok, where else? IG, Facebook, we're there.
And brain fog me.
YouTube.
Y'all know where to find us.
And we have our podcast on all streaming platforms. So check us out and let us know if you have any episodes or anything you want us to cover. And if you want to come on the show to share your story, please do. And we look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
The Ladies Edition. Subscribe to the podcast for riveting conversation.